Hi, and welcome to Chapter 23. In Chapter 23, we're going to talk about the gross domestic product, GDP. It's also what we use to measure the growth of the economy. So let's go ahead and jump into our first objective. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay, and in objective one, what we're looking at is how exactly do we calculate or measure a nation's income or GDP? So in this objective, what we're going to look at is how we calculate it. And the important thing to remember is that depending if we use the expenditure approach or the income approach, it really doesn't matter because they're always going to be equal. So that's what you really want to take away from this particular learning objective. Okay, so income versus expenditure. So if we take everything that is produced within an economy and we can add it all up, or we can take everything that is spent in the economy. So here, again, the total income, so that would be, for example, the rent, wages, and profit, sum all of that up for the entire economy. Or we can take everything that is spent on land, labor, and capital and sum that up in as an economy. So we can use an income approach or we can use an expenditure approach. It doesn't matter which one we're going to use because they're always going to be equal. Now, I don't even teach you the expenditure approach, the income approach, because it's very, very difficult. Think about how to value wages in New York City as compared to Michigan, as compared to around the world. It can happen, okay? But when we look at that, it becomes really difficult to measure. A lot of very heavy mathematics involved in that. So all I want you to know is that it exists. It's another way to calculate GDP, but we're going to focus on the income approach. So to that end, so we can go ahead and look back at our circular flow diagram, and I know I'm going through this pretty quickly. But here we have the markets for factors of production. And again, you'll see right here the income approach to GDP, where we're totaling up the rent, the wages, and the profit. On the top side, you can see the expenditure approach, or I'm just going to put expenditure up here. Now, what are those expenditures? Where did they come from? They come from, if we add up all the land, all the labor, and the capital. But notice it doesn't really matter because whatever happens on the top part of this graph is equal to whatever happens on the bottom part of this graph. So depending income, expenditure, it really doesn't matter because they're going to equal the same thing. Now, some things that we omitted in the circular flow diagram when we looked at it in chapter 3, the government. So we're going to be talking in upcoming goods about the actor or upcoming goods. We're going to talk about taxes. We will, because macroeconomics focuses on like income tax. We're going to take a look at that. The government is also a big buyer in goods and services. They purchase a lot of things when you think about local, state, national government, wages, all of those things, court, you can go on, and it's a pretty big buyer of goods and services. We also didn't talk about the financial system. And what the financial system does is it matches savers and borrowers. Okay, people who have money to lend, savers, with people who need money. Okay, so we're going to study that in the course as well. We've also totally ignored the foreign sector. So for example, if we buy things from other countries, that's an import because it's products coming into the US. If we sell things to other countries, That's an export, okay? Because it's leaving the US for some other nation like China maybe, okay? So we haven't talked about those things, and we're going to be adding them in, particularly when we talk about the gross domestic product. That's the end of our first objective. I'll see you back for objective 2 when we really pick apart the definition of the gross domestic product. So I'm going to stop my share, and I'll see you next time in chapter 2. Thanks.